We are going to call the order to order this meeting of the Executive Committee. Clerk, please call the roll.
Whipper.
Here.
Elo Rivera.
Present.
Vargas is absent. Hall.
Here.
Moreno is absent. Bush.
Here.
Goebel.
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum.
All right, thank you. We will begin our meeting with public comment. Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We do. We have several. Jason Brown, please make your way to the podium.
Hello, my name is Jason Brown. I am a driver who works for the East County Division of Transdev. I'm a member of the Amalgamated Transit Union 1309. Many of us in El Cajon have been honoring the Teamsters strike line because, like them, we can no longer bear the weight of unfair labor practices and oppressive wages committed by us against the drivers, service workers, mechanics, and even supervisors by Transdev. I love being a driver. For all its ups and downs, having a career and supporting my family doing something that is an essential public service is something I take great pride in. Unfortunately, whether or not one can provide for a family working in El Cajon is a subject of debate these days. The fact of the matter is, with rising cost of living and static wages, most of us at East County are living paycheck to paycheck and seeking other revenue streams in order to continue our work. On top of this, many of our schedules require us to be available to work for 13-hour days, often only being paid for 8.5 of those. And even then, even when we aren't dealing with splits, we still have schedules that can run as long as 12.5 hours with poorly maintained or frequently occupied restroom facilities. Sometimes no facilities at all. We're often forced to take our lunches sitting in the open at a transit center or huddled up hiding in a company car and unable to actually rest because of it. In 10 years, we've now reached a top pay of $25 an hour, and only then because of a $2 increase this last year provided by MTS, not Transdev. They don't need more of your money, they need to be brought to heel. Transdev has proven themselves to be satisfied holding on to whatever money they are given and not guaranteeing service in return. Transdev has been relying on this vulnerability of its employees and keeping us smaller than required staff to force mandatory overtime on us when, for as far back as anyone can remember, be it 5 years, 10 years, or longer, in spite of selling a 5-day work week, it is common practice for all of us to work 6 days every week. That extra day is almost guaranteed to be a 13-hour shift, and we often won't know how long we'll be there or what we'll be doing until our start time. In fact, while most of us would love to be able to strike, many of us are simply too poor to do it. We are a shade above qualifying for public aid, and in fact, some of us already do, which is a good thing too. Transdev charges El Cajon drivers $950 a month for health insurance. In addition to this, our schedules are so pockmarked across the week and across various start and end times, we struggle even to have a union meeting or a date night or see our kids more than 15 minutes before work and 15 minutes before bed.
30 seconds left.
We have 13-hour days and by law have to get 8 hours of sleep every night. That's 21 hours a day. That doesn't even factor in travel time both ways, including for those of us who use public transit to work public transit. At the end of the days, we're drivers and mechanics and service workers. We don't in ourselves have the power to fix this alone. At the end of the day, all I want is to get back to serving my community and providing for my family. That's all any of us wants, but we can't do it under these conditions. You have the power and you know what can be done and how to do it. Whether you were aware of the situation before now or not, we are in your hands now. Please don't let us slip. And thank you for your time.
Rebecca Satrom, please make your way to the podium.
Hello. I want to thank you for listening to us. My name is Rebecca Satrom, and I'm a union representative on the executive board meeting for ATU 1309 for East County Transdev. I've been working for Transdev for 17 years, going on 18 years actually this month. And we've been in this plight for many years. I've spoken to several of you members here and explained the situation at our yard. We endure all the same situation as South Bay. However, we're the lowest paid out of all the yards. We are top pay 25. My coworker went through a lot of the things I was going to bring up. And we have our biggest issue is our health insurance. We have drivers that come in at $20 an hour and they need to pay, they have a wife and a child, they need to pay $950 a month. So Transdev has forced them to go to SIMSA across the border, or has forced them to take Medi-Cal, or has forced them to go on Covered California. That is not fair. Why MTS is allowing a contractor to do these things to their drivers. 13-hour days, 6 days a week. We've all been doing it for 8+ years. And even though I have more seniority and I don't have to pick routes like that, I do have to take over sometimes for people who don't have the time to spend with their families, and I take over their route for them on a Saturday. I know that it's still up for vote next week. This isn't going to change with Transdev. They're money hungry. They just want money for their pockets because they're corporate. We need to be all under one umbrella. We need to be all paid the same because we provide service for public transportation for public members of the community. Most of the people here are gone I know this is just the committee meeting, and I will be more prepared. I was not prepared to even speak today. But the main thing is that I've spoken to Mr. Whitburn. I've spoken to Marcus. I've spoken to Ron Hall when I did last November's phone call to the executive board. I've heard from Elo Rivera's office.
30
I-
seconds left.
Thank you. I just want all of you to realize how much we suffer out there. I've been at Miramar College Transit Center without a restroom since January because Transdev does not provide us a restroom over there. They took it away and they never put one back again. So please take all this into consideration. We thank you for your time today, and we thank you for your patience in listening to all our pleas. Thank you.
Javier Castro, please unmute yourself now. Javier, it looks like you're still muted. We'll move on to the original DRA. Please unmute yourself now.
I hope in the last meeting that some of you were in that you really thought about, what's going on with this strike and how you can make it better, because I feel like you guys try and keep yourselves at arm's length from things, but you're the one that is in contracts with these people or these entities. And so therefore you do have control because you could, cancel the contracts. And what I find you guys doing is, concerning yourselves with things because you want us all to use this public transit, that you are bringing in a lot of, smart items that are going to, bring about different things to the city or the county. But I find that you're lacking in your ability and desire to make these jobs that these people have something where they want more people to come, and they tell people, hey, you should come work here because it's so great. But when you don't even have a workforce that wants to work for you and you want everybody to use this kind of transit, it's very neglectful and negligent to ignore these people and act like there's nothing you can do when you could provide bathrooms and not just leave it up to different entities to do it. And instead, you want to change policies and, even go to the city council to have them change a policy so that you can generate money. And so I find that you're more concerned about, getting money than you are with dealing with the money that you have and doing things that are productive with it. And that's just kind of sad because you have all these people come and, tell you their concerns. And, when you act like, well, it's not us doing it, you are with the company, you are the company that you keep. So it's like, you guys are engaging with these people that are doing nefarious things, and it does not reflect good upon you when you could terminate the contract and say, we're not going to participate with entities that treat people in this county that way. But I mean, these people are, originated from France. So it's like, you know, is there, and they want to push the whole, different types of driving, like autonomous driving and stuff like that. So, you just need to think about who you're engaging with, because if you really want people to believe that you care, then like I've said so many times, please show it, because, it's just sad that these people have to endure this, all while you guys sit, getting paid very well, being able to use the bathroom when you want, having, the people pay for things so that you get, all these perks, but we leave people behind in the process. So, as you sit up there on your dais, think about the
Your
people
time has
that are coming to
expired.
you.
That concludes public comment, Chair.
Thank you very much, Clerk. We will now take up approval of the minutes. Is there any public comment on approval of the minutes?
We do not.
I'll make
a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion from Member Hall. I will second the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes of the May 11th, 2023 Executive Committee meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. That motion carries. We will now move into our discussion items, beginning with item number 4, and we will turn it over to Mr. Olson for a discussion of revisions to MTS Board Policy number 21, which is the MTS Revenue Generating Display, Advertising, Concessions, and Merchandise. Mr. Olson.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you, members of the Executive Committee. Yes, today we're going to be looking at considering revising our Board Policy 21. A little bit of background about Board Policy 21. It basically governs what can be advertised on our system, whether that's vehicles or stations or our furniture like our benches and shelters. And we have a number of things that can be done and can't be done. And one of the things that we're looking at today is we want to get the board's and the Executive Committee's approval to look at waiving the prohibition on alcohol advertising. Currently, it prohibits ads that promote the use or ingestion of or offers in commerce of the sale of alcohol. And this conversation came up because when the board approved the Gaslamp Digital Information Board in December, it did waive that policy to allow alcohol advertising on that specific structure. And it was suggested at that time for staff to bring back a broader look at the entire policy to see if this could be applied on a broader spectrum. And so that's what we're doing here today to start that process. So the recommendations are the three that, things that we want to do are remove the alcohol advertising prohibition. One of the things that we'll need to do too is also for our shelters and within the city of San Diego, there's a special agreement in place that isn't applied to our other agreements for shelters in other cities. So we'd want to work with the city to allow, alcohol advertising on shelters and benches within the city. And then some minor revisions as well that we were looking at a little bit closer, where the policy actually applies to a broader spectrum of communications that we do. Right now, it's a little bit narrow in scope to just printed materials. But given, digital communication, social media, and the other advertising elements, we want to make sure it's consistent with what we're using right now to communicate with customers and other people. So why would we want to lift this prohibition? There's a lot of reasons after looking at this that we see, how it could benefit MTS, and really it strengthens relationships with our community partners, allows us more social responsibility opportunities by promoting transit over driving at events that serve alcohol. And I'll go into some more specifics about these. One of the big ones that we've talked about is finding more ways that we can generate non-fare revenue. That's come up a lot of different times with this board, and to help close that $51 million structural deficit. And this could be a way that we can do that and starting immediately. Also promoting transit to casual riders. There's large scale special events out there, and then growing our ridership base, particularly with casual riders out there, getting them more understanding of how transit can benefit them. And one of the ways is by, providing that ride when they shouldn't be driving if they've been consuming alcohol. So going into some large scale special events, we've missed out on some, and we've looked at some partnerships with a few of these events in recent years, and we just haven't been able to have those partnerships because of alcohol mentioned in the name of the organization or the event taking place. So Bayside Brew and Spirits, that was one in National City. Amps and Ales put on in Chula Vista. West Coast Taco and Beer Festival that just happened recently in downtown San Diego, and the San Diego Festival of Beer. Also we see some room to capitalize on the craft beer culture, and it's not just craft beer anymore. It's craft wine and craft spirits too that are just very much, very popular right now in San Diego. There's actually a company out there that's, promoting our trolley line as craft beer tours, as a way to get from brewery to brewery to brewery. And we're not able to kind of work with them or partner with them in any kind of way. And so that's something that we'd like to do. And then also just promote and advertise, specific bus lines. It's not just the trolley, you have like Route 2 along 30th and in South Park. There's a lot of really great venues that people frequent, where Route 2 could be a great way for them to go from place to place to place. So we'd like to look at, partnering with some organizations and, some of the nonprofit organizations that we've seen out there that we could partner with, the San Diego Brewers Guild, they're promoting over 150 breweries in San Diego. A lot of those are really close to transit stops. So it's something where I think there's a lot of connectivity there. El Cajon Business Improvement District, I think there's some opportunity there given all the bars and restaurants that are in those areas. Voice of San Diego has Brews and News, Circulate San Diego has transit and brewery tours. So those are other opportunities out there that we could use if this policy is modified. And then going into the revenue generating aspect of this with the advertising revenue, Clear Channel Outdoor, who is here today, they manage our portfolio of advertising on our vehicles and on our shelters. They provided some high level projections on what we could get pretty quick. And I think, what we're looking at is between 385,000 and 770,000 annually. And about 25% of the ads they thought would be alcohol related on these mediums. So within buses and trolleys, you're looking at 170,000 to 340. And then the shelters and the digital shelters, and this includes with the city of San Diego, if we can get those modifications made, would be an additional 215,000 to 430,000. Clear Channel does have, they do this in other areas. They do this with other transit agencies that promote alcohol or have alcohol advertising on their system. And they do have exclusionary zones set up. So you're thinking schools, parks, playgrounds, churches, recognized as places of worship. All of those are exclusionary areas where they do not do any alcohol advertising within 500 feet. So they already have this type of policy in place to help govern that. And we felt pretty comfortable with how they address those situations and the way they're very careful and meticulous about making sure those advertising is not in those specific areas. We also did a peer review and looked at some other agencies that are about our same size, that have light rail, have bus services. So with Denver, their advertising policy has no mention of alcohol under the prohibited content or subject matter. It does specifically mention tobacco, nicotine, and cannabis is prohibited. TriMet has no mention of alcohol under their prohibited content in their advertising policy. In Minneapolis, they have excluded advertising, includes, political candidates, election, very similar to us, but they allow alcohol advertising with a responsible drinking message associated with it. So that's kind of one of their specific things that they have attached to their policy, but they do have alcohol advertising on their system. And Utah Transit Authority, they also allow alcohol advertising. They just want to make sure that it's consistent with state and federal law. Here's some samples of what we've seen out there with other jurisdictions that promote alcohol in the transit system. So see in Milwaukee, they have a partnership, probably, I assume it's with kind of like the San Diego Brewers Guild about kind of a hops and stops program to really promote the light rail in a way that makes it a convenient way to get from place to place to place. BART's done some up in San Francisco, they've done some a series of blogs and partnered with different breweries to showcase what they have to offer, and really is BART a way to get around. MARTA in Atlanta, this is just a sample of a bus shelter that has some alcohol advertising on it. In Denver, they partnered with Coors Light to do a Freeze the Keys promotion on New Year's Eve, which I thought was a good way to utilize the alcohol advertising and finding a good partnership, with an organization to promote responsible drinking and taking transit as an alternative to driving. Minneapolis, they've done some things with local papers and featured, breweries along their light rail system. And AC Transit had something that was, I thought, really creative, where they actually brought one of their old buses and they gave it to a brewery to basically showcase this brewery along line 51. And so it's actually a part of the establishment, which I thought was a great way to showcase the transit system there. Maybe there's an opportunity with us in doing something with Carl Strauss Brewery, which has the Red Trolley Ale. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there. So we've kind of gone through some of the ideas for promotional activities with free rides, partner with companies offering weekend trolley and craft beer and food tours, co-marketing partnerships with events taking place, marketing partnerships with, the San Diego Brewers Guild, and then also Carl Strauss as well, are just some early ideas that we have of how we could use this right away for community partnerships. So with this, the recommended action would be that the MTS Executive Committee Board forward the recommendation to the Board of Directors to approve the proposed revisions to Board Policy 21 and remove the alcohol advertising prohibition on transit vehicles, trolley stations, and transit centers. And then also direct city staff or MTS staff to work with City of San Diego on amendments to applicable policies to allow alcohol advertising on bus shelters and benches within the City of San Diego. So with that, we can take the questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olson. Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We do. The original DRA. Please mute yourself now.
This is kind of what I was talking about before. I guess this leads down a dangerous path because, I mean, when you talk about, like a drinking tour and doing hops from breweries and whatnot, and we have young children riding public transit for free, I mean, are you going to have a specific car or bus that's only designated to that? So that you make sure, because you're basically promoting being drunk in public by having these people go from place to place to place and continue to drink and drink and drink. Where does drunk in public come in? And, are you basically, pushing people to do that, not understanding that then they could face, punishment from the police? I mean, are you going to be having more security? You guys don't even have bathrooms. And if you're like people that are drinking and they're going from stop to stop to stop are going to want a bathroom. And so it's like in your pursuit to make money, I feel like you don't think about all of the things that could come from this and promoting drinking like that. It just seems a little weird, and it's all just to make, $385,000 to $700,000. I just don't really understand that. And you're always changing your policy to do that, but then you still have to go to city council, right? And if you do, how many of you are already on that council? So it's like, you're always, like I've said, ancestral on these boards, so you can go and make sure that these things get changed. But I mean, just the other day at city council, you guys are talking about not putting alcohol ads on these new kiosks. So it's very confusing when on one hand you're saying we don't want to do that, and then on the other you're like, well, we need to make money doing it. It's just a little bit confusing because I don't think you really think everything through. That just really concerns me with kids being able to ride public transit and you guys in engaging in promoting drinking tours and things like that. I just wonder how you're going to protect the children. So I would think about that and make sure that you guys really understand what you're engaging in here and what this could lead to. And if it is worth the money that you are set to get from putting ads out like this. So, yeah.
Leif Gensert, please unmute yourself now.
Just tagging on to that, I think it's a good idea to offer public transport as an opportunity, because the reality of what's happening now is people are drunk in public, people are drinking, and some of them are driving their car, which is even more dangerous. So giving an opportunity for people who drink to go home by public transport is a huge win in that situation. So I support this initiative, but I would also ask to keep it in line with responsible drinking initiatives and keeping in line with state and federal law. If you're saying Utah does it, Mormon City does it, I don't see an issue with that happening in San Diego as well. Thank you.
Patrick, please unmute yourself now.
Hi, good afternoon, board. My name is Patrick Grillo. I'm a resident of El Cajon, and I'm calling similar to the previous speaker. I'm cautious about this policy revision, opening the door. I think many of the proposals presented by staff do seem reasonable about promoting responsible drinking, especially around dangerous holidays like New Year's Eve and maybe 4th of July. And also the opportunity to present more or promote more tourism-centric events that involve alcohol. But I do want to be cautious about what the other side of that might be if we remove the prohibition entirely without some sort of caveat or additional direction or criteria around the messaging, that there could be less responsible ads being presented, not just on bus stops and things like that, but also trolley wraps or, signs inside the trolley. And of course, the trolleys go and buses go everywhere. So prohibitions on advertisement of this kind near schools or city hall or other sensitive areas doesn't really work when the buses and trolleys are, of course, mobile. I'll also note that I used to live in Wisconsin, which is notorious in some regard for its drinking culture and the problems that come with that. A 2021 report from the Alcohol Prevention Working Group in Wisconsin recommended banning alcohol advertising from municipal properties because youth exposure to alcohol advertising is a proven factor in alcohol initiation, as well as the amount of alcohol consumed. So I just encourage the board to be putting some guardrails around this so we don't open the floodgates. Thank you.
That concludes public comment, Chair.
Thank you, Clerk. We will now begin board discussion with Member Elo Rivera.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. As you all have heard me say many, many times, I certainly appreciate efforts to expand revenue opportunities. Earlier this week, Council passed an ordinance to allow digital kiosks in the downtown area, and that marked a shift in the way that San Diego's thinking about revenue opportunities. So in that vein, definitely appreciate where we're going. And I see how this was going to help on the revenue side. That being said, we did notice the language around the Clear Channel has with respect to guidelines about where these advertisements could be placed. I don't think we should outsource our responsibilities. If we think that those are good guidelines, and I do think that they are, I think that should be codified in MTS policy. And so I'm happy to make a motion to forward the recommendation here with an inclusion of the following language into board policy 21. And that'd be that alcohol advertisements shall not be placed on shelters or digital shelters within 500 feet from or intended to be read from the following, and that'd be schools, public parks, playgrounds, and churches, recognized, established, or standalone places of worship, daycare, preschool, hospitals, and cemetery/funeral homes. Again, this is in line with the language that Clear Channel has. And if we think that that is a good policy, then we should probably just incorporate it into our rules and not just rely upon a corporation. So again, really appreciative of the efforts, like where we're going here in general, but do want to make sure that there's guardrails in-house rather than just on the outside. That concludes my motion, Chair.
Second.
Thank you, Chair. I think one of the questions that the board might have next week, which you might answer proactively, is would any city have the ability to prohibit alcohol advertising on buses in its city? And I think there would be several cities that might be interested in knowing, do they have the right to do that?
Well, currently we have memorandums of understandings for the furniture in a lot of our cities. There's two that we don't that handle their own furniture, which is Poway and City of Coronado. But the other ones we do have MOUs, or we're working on MOUs. So I think it's something where, we would have to work directly with the city of San Diego to get any kind of, or with any of the cities, and get some type of amendment done if they want to go that path.
And the only comment, just sorry, I moved over here to get the language. I'm sorry. In practical terms, if a specific city didn't want those on their shelters, that would probably be something we can negotiate. We wouldn't be able to say buses themselves, because how we deploy the buses, we wouldn't be able to know, like, it would really impact our operations to say this particular bus can't drive through this city on that day. So So in that sense, there could still be like a bus with a bus wrap or with an internal ad. That if you approve this, I can't think of a practical way that we could efficiently like exclude those vehicles from certain jurisdictions. And same thing with trolley wraps.
And just to, for a point of clarification, the amendment that I offered specified shelters and digital shelters for that exact reason, because of just the practicality of trying to figure out when you're within 500 feet or visibility of those various sensitive
Yeah,
spaces.
I'm more concerned about the panels on the side of the buses going through lower income communities where alcohol advertising may not be welcome. And that might be something to think about in the next week. How are we going to address low income communities who might have a concern with advertising to their community? Something to think about is all I'm saying. My other comment would be, let's not just these events do alcohol, but there's Restaurant Week in downtown San Diego, the Gaslamp Business Owners Association. We should absolutely be working with them. The alcohol might be the removal of a barrier to be able to do that. But let's not focus just on craft or alcohol events, but any event where there is an association of business owners which might benefit from a trolley event. Councilwoman Diller and I spoke about this, so I'd like to give her some credit as well.
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate staff for their work on this and just being proactive and looking at revenue generation, because we keep talking about the need for that in the structural deficit. So I appreciate us thinking beyond the box and looking at this. I definitely hear the public concerns about safety and exposure to children. I think Member Goebel brought up a good point just now about buses and going through certain communities who maybe have that overexposure, and maybe a suggestion in line with this proposal, which I support, to kind of address that we can bring back for further discussion at the board next week, is having maybe a side-by-side for every mobile bus that allows alcohol advertising. I think I saw other agencies that do the kind of the label at the end or at the bottom, or maybe it's a side-by-side advertisement of, so yes, maybe we're allowing an event that has beer, but maybe next to that it's from Mothers Against Drunk Driving or something like that. So maybe there's a balance there, but also want to highlight that I really like this approach on advertising for events for alcohol more with transit, because to me, I think that's a public safety benefit overall. We're steering people away from drinking and driving. That's the main thing, is people operating vehicles. And this is the opportunity to do that. Yes, we need to balance safety. We definitely don't want to promote overconsumption. So I think that's the key. We also do need more bathrooms. So that continues to be, a issue. But if we are getting more revenue here, then we have more money for potentially bathroom operation. I don't know. One other question to staff that was brought up: is there currently a prohibition against cannabis advertising?
Yes, there is.
So I would encourage us to take a look at that. I don't know if that's part of a different or separate action that needs analysis.
I
Executive
think our
Director.
concern was with the federal, most of our assets are purchased with federal money.
So
Illegal.
would the maker of the motion be, well, so is there agencies that do allow that? So the reason I ask, I understand the concern about federal, but we're also trying to get revenue. And I don't understand why we as a organization would treat cannabis different, other than the federal issue, which is legit. But if we're trying to get revenue, I wonder why we would treat cannabis and alcohol differently, when in many ways alcohol is more of a dangerous substance. And not to get to the rabbit hole of debating cannabis versus alcohol, but I'm just talking about the principle and trying to make more revenue. That's with balancing public safety.
I can tell you that we were concerned about how would the federal government consider that with our federally funded assets to be advertising something that's currently illegal under federal law. So I haven't done extensive research to be like exactly where that was, but so we didn't go down that. We did like alcohol. It seems across the country that there is more of a process where people allow alcohol, but they still ban advertisements for tobacco, for cannabis, for firearms. And so it didn't, like, my initial question was like, why is there the different categories? But it seems that, the practice across the country for these advertising is to have loosened it as it relates to alcohol, but still to prohibit it for various reasons for those other categories. But I would, before we, on timing wise, if the board wanted us to entertain it, I would request that, could we move forward on the discussion of alcohol, and then we could do research
Totally.
on the legal limits.
Yeah,
of
I don't want to
adding
hold this up.
cannabis.
Yeah, to be clear, I definitely don't want to hold this up. So that wasn't the intent, but just to.
Okay, thank you, Member Bush. Member Hall.
Just real quick, have you actually talked to Carl Strauss about any of this, or is this just more of a?
Yes,
suggestion?
we've had some loose conversations with the owner there.
Okay.
And, there is some interest, there's definitely some interest.
Okay, yeah, that's good, because they've got some different areas going. The other thing is you possibly put a disclaimer down at the bottom or something if we need to. Kind of similar to cigarettes, or, if you're feel you're drinking too much, call this number, something like that. But something we can look at with the ads. But yeah, I think we should look at each item separately. And, so I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Goble.
So one of the things about television now is the drug companies seem to have monopolized commercial breaks, and because they can bid the most. And I don't know that we will want to be in a similar position where alcohol companies can bid the most, and they have the widespread, they monopolize the space on our advertisements. So you'll need to think about that too, as far as, is there a limit on the percentage of alcohol advertising among total advertising, so that we don't become an alcohol advertising transportation agency?
All right, thank you very much, Vice Chair Goble. All right, we have a motion by Member Elo Rivera, a second by Member Bush. For clarity, I would like to restate the motion. Who would like to, Member Elo Rivera, would you like to restate your motion just so we're all clear?
If you're open to it, maybe Karen, that way.
Ms. Landers?
Double checking our work.
I did send the language to the clerk, but I will read you what we have, so that the motion was to forward the recommendation, but to revise the policy to include a provision that would say that alcohol advertisement shall not be placed on shelters or digital shelters within 500 feet from or intended to be read from the following: schools, public parks, playgrounds, church recognized, established, or standalone places of worship, daycares, preschool, hospitals, and cemetery funeral homes.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Landers. We'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries unanimously. All right, we will move on to item number 5, and we'll go back to Mr. Olson for discussion of a master concessionaire services contract award.
Well, thank you, Chair. Appreciate the opportunity again. Also with me today to present on this item is Brianda Diaz, who's an MTS procurement specialist, and she's been responsible for handling the request for proposals process as well as the contract negotiations for the new master concessionaire. So a little bit of background is that the master concessionaire, provides oversight and professional concession and advertising services at MTS trolley stations and transit centers, as well as the activation areas, such as the Gaslamp Trolley Square. So in a lot of ways, they act as a landlord and a day-to-day contact for our concessionaires, and just as another set of eyes and ears, on our system. The program began right around 2010, and Bryce House has been the master concessionaire since 2012. The current contract is set to expire on July 31st, 2023, as to why we're here today. So a few things that have been successful with this: it's really provided some new opportunity for some brick and mortar locations at our transit centers for our customers to access. As you can see here, they've also expanded the non-fare revenue program here with large format advertising space at some of our stations, as well as some ad panel kiosks, pole banner space. So they've done a really good job of expanding this past just managing tenants into an advertising and revenue source for MTS. Here's some fence banners that they've put up and gotten various advertisers to advertise on. fence banners, wall spaces, as well as the pole banners. And also our vending machine enclosures. They've developed these enclosures all throughout our system where our vending machines are, which have dual purpose. They protect our vending machines from vandalism, but they also provide another advertising space. And so we've been able to generate revenue off of that as well. On the right, you can see these standalone ad panels that are lit up that Bryce House has also installed at various locations on our system. And then, as I mentioned before, the Gaslamp Trolley Square, they're responsible for activating this when big conventions are in town, and particularly when Comic-Con is in town. NBC is on board to activate our Gaslamp Square again next month. And so Bryce House often acts as on the ground, day-to-day communications for any of these activations that happen at our transit centers. So the three primary roles we put in the scope of work are like I mentioned, the day-to-day activities for our tenants. We want them to provide those concession services, continue to provide the advertising services, but also grow our portfolio out there. We think there's a lot of opportunities. We have a lot of space, I think, that is underutilized. So I wanted the master concessionaire to really take a hard look at our properties and see what we could do to better activate that and generate MTS more revenue than we're already generating off this contract. One of the new elements to this is the on-property beverage sales. Previously, MTS had a direct relationship with Coca-Cola for this. We felt that it was better housed underneath the master concessionaire, since they are the primary day-to-day activity oversight entity for our properties. And so we've actually put that contract now underneath, because both are expiring at the same time. So with that, I'll hand it over to Brianda to talk about the solicitation process.
Thank you, Mark. I'm Brianda, and I'm the procurement specialist who worked on this solicitation. As Mark mentioned, both the vending services and the master concessionaire contracts are set to expire on July 31st of this year. So the procurement process for this was on February 8th of this year. We issued a request for proposal for a master concessionaire contractor for a 6 base year term with 2 3-year options. We received one proposal on the due date of March 17th from Bryce House. MTS conducted a few post-proposal surveys with prospective proposers requesting the reasons for not proposing. MTS received 0 responses. Bryce House, Bryce House was determined to be a responsive and a responsible proposer, and their proposal was forwarded to an evaluation committee comprised of MTS, finance, marketing, real estate, and rail departments. The proposal was evaluated on the qualifications of the firm, staffing, organization, and management plan, proposed methodology and work plan, as well as cost, compensation, and financial benefit. The first table represents the evaluation scores based on the initial review, both the total average tech score and average cost score. After initial evaluations, interviews, and subsequent negotiation, the evaluation committee did determine that Bryce House presented the best overall value to MTS. And on the bottom table, you'll be able to see how they were rescored based on the interview and negotiations. As mentioned, this contract is set to begin on August 1st of 2023 for a 6 base year term with 2 3-year options. On this table, you'll see the revenue contract terms. There are 5 different categories: vending services, vending advertising, trolley station ad panels, large format advertising, and concessionaire services. On the first column, you'll see MTS's revenue share percentage split. The next column is estimated net revenue for the base years. And then the last column is the estimated net revenue for the option years. The estimated MTS revenue for the base years is 7 million. Option years is 8,435,376 for a total estimated revenue over the 12 years to be 15,468,783. This is estimated revenue, and the projection doesn't include any additional advertising opportunities. I will pass it over to Mark, who will speak a little bit about Bryce House.
So I think one of the interesting things about this contract is this is a contract where they pay us, right? You know, it's not something where we have to pay the contractor for a specific service. We get the service of them being the master concessionaire, plus we make revenue off of it. So we think it's certainly a win-win from there. Bryce House's structure here, they have two subs, one of which is for the outdoor advertising element, which is Big Outdoor, who specializes in outdoor advertising all throughout the country. And then Pepsi is going to be the new on-property beverage sales provider if this is approved. So they'll continue to do the day-to-day activities with our A-Mart markets and act as that point of contact. We also have some booths at specific spots where we have tenants, and then also occasionally we'll have pop-up tents at locations, and particularly that happens at Old Town, San Ysidro, and Otay Mesa. So Bryce House, if approved, would still be responsible for these efforts. They also have a very strong presence in South Bay, which we've really benefited from over the years. Particularly at San Ysidro, they really have their ear to the ground there. And I think there's a lot of value there for MTS, considering San Ysidro is such a busy port of entry and such a strong presence of transit around the area. So they're on the Border Transportation Council, the president of that, San Ysidro Improvement Corporation, also part of the CBP, Passenger Pedestrian Improvement Committee. They're involved with the police department down there, with their advisory board. So a lot of activity, and not just doing our day-to-day activity, also a part of the community in a lot of ways there. With the new approach with on-property beverage sales, we are switching from Coke to Pepsi. So in the beverage wars, we're trading sides, I guess, if this is approved. But one of the things that Pepsi is wanted to do is really reduce the number and get some quality control with the number of vending machines we have out in the system. It was more than 50. We were having a lot of challenges with the current provider with keeping those machines out there in a solid state of good repair. Sometimes they were being removed and we weren't being told. And so those enclosures that were acting as advertising and some protection were turning into a place where things were happening that we didn't want to happen there. But we still have good coverage for vending services throughout the system with this and our A-Marts. We still have basically, some type of concession at every other trolley station throughout the system. So we still have good coverage. The commission is solid. It's basically where it was with Coca-Cola. So we feel content there. And we'll get about 36,000 in revenue off of this, which isn't a huge sum. I think it's really the benefit to our riders, and having those vending options out there for them when they need it is really kind of what we're after with this. And then they also offer to donate 200 cases annually for our rider appreciation events that we do at our transit centers. With the advertising, Bryce House, didn't just say we're going to continue to maintain the advertising we have in place. We want to make it better. And I think that was really, really important to us. Is like, you provided good service to us over the years, but what more can you do? How are you going to put your own skin in the game, so to speak, with this? And so they are doing that, and they're committing, $150,000 to refresh the current ad displays that we have out there, which I think is very important. And then also they are committing $750,000 to pilot a digital kiosk program at 5 different stations and see how that works to expand our revenue options, and also can act as wayfinding information for our riders. They're investing in the electrical infrastructure at our mid-coast stations that's needed to have lit panels up there for advertising and other information. And they're also going to refresh and refurbish the vending machine enclosures, which are about 10 years old now. So they're due for that. And they promise to do that as well as part if they are awarded the contract. They also had some really good ideas about expanding on revenue. We have a lot of large surface areas out there that are just basically concrete. And it's like, what else can we do with this space to generate revenue? And so these aren't set in stone of what to do, but they just came with ideas on how they could, activate our spaces and generate more revenue for MTS. So as you can see, there's a grade separation there that's near the airport. That could be a possibility. A retaining wall at our Nobel station along the mid-coast. And then also, maybe some digital displays there by the convention center that could generate us some revenue during large conventions. So with that, we'd like the executive committee to forward a recommendation to the board of directors to authorize the CEO to execute an agreement with Bryce House for the master concessionaire services for a 6-year base period with 2 3-year options, and then also exercise the option years at the CEO's discretion. So with that, we can open it up for questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olson. Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We do. The original DRA. Please unmute yourself now.
I guess I just have some questions, because I feel like you guys are getting ads and the ability to place ads from all of these different entities. And so I just wonder where the oversight comes in as far as like the messaging and I mean, even just this Wayfinder stuff. I mean, you have a different company working that like you guys that are part of the city council, it's Ike. And so you have all of these different Wayfinders. Who's going to oversee all of these entities and what messaging they're putting out and if it's consistent, and again, it's like talking about concessions. I think that's great, but I feel like when we're talking about like the needs of people, like they're going to want something to drink or eat or whatever, of course. But then if you don't offer them a bathroom, I feel like we like move forward, but we're always moving backwards because we don't like keep up with being able to give people an opportunity to go to the bathroom. And so I wonder if you've ever like looked for a company that would offer something similar to this, where there are ads that are placed on the outside of the restrooms so that you can generate income to possibly provide more restrooms. So I wonder when you guys are getting all this income from different ads that your space that you're selling, where does that money go? Like what bucket is that going to go in and where are you going to use it later? I mean, because if you talk about getting ads, then maybe you can put restrooms. Well, it's like, why don't you look into, and I'm going to have to do this myself, because if it's really easy for me to find something that is available, then you guys are obviously not doing your due diligence and also seeking for contracts that will, where somebody wants to place a bathroom here, right? Because then you guys can generate ads, whatever it is. I just feel like you kind of miss that in the process of trying to make money and provide certain things. What about providing a bathroom and making money off of it? I mean, so I'm going to look into that, and literally if I can find it really easy, that's really disappointing. And I mean, I'll share it with you guys, not like you'll do anything with it, but you should look into that and seek contracts for bathrooms to be put in different places where, I mean, if people are willing to give up a kiosk and so many of them for you guys to put them in places, I guarantee you there's someone with a bathroom service out there. I mean, it's a basic necessity to life. So think about that. You can make money off of the bathrooms and then you could offer more. So, I mean, I think you guys think that we're full of shit, but I mean, seriously, it's something that I think you should think about if you're outsourcing for contracts. If you're not seeking those and you're just saying we can't find them because when we look into it, it's too expensive, then you're not really doing your due diligence. So hopefully I don't find something really easy, but if I do, share it with you guys.
That concludes public comment, Chair.
Thank you, Clerk. We will begin our board discussion now. Member Hall?
Just going to make a motion to approve the.
All right. And I'm happy to second that. We have a motion and a second to approve the staff recommendation. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Is it okay to put this on consent
For next
week's board?
Sure. Yeah, so this will appear on consent on the next Thursday's board meeting. All right. We will now move on to item number 6, which is an informational item, the Gaslamp Corridor Trolley Station Digital Information Board update. Mr. Olson.
Well, thank you, Chair. And this item will be really brief. We just wanted to bring this forward to you as renderings are coming forward for the Gaslamp Corridor Digital Information Board. And we've gone out to some stakeholders out there in the community and receive some feedback as well. But before construction starts, which we're looking at doing after Comic-Con ends, we wanted to make sure that we brought these renderings and design to you so you can see what they look like. So just as a quick reminder, in December 2022, the board approved a license agreement with Big Outdoor to construct and operate a digital information board in the Gaslamp Trolley Station. The base year is 20 years base contract, and then there's 2 5-year options as well as part of this license agreement. So the digital board would be operating from 6 a.m. to midnight, and we would only have static displays from 11 p.m. to 12 a.m. to limit that with the community and limit some of the light pollution there. And MTS is entitled to use 10% of the digital display time for MTS related events that are, that we want to promote transit around the Gaslamp Corridor area. And then a big part of this is a great wayfinding digital board that'll be at the bottom of this, where our customers will be able to just access transit information only. It'll be at street level, and I believe it'll be a touchscreen option there too. So it'll be a great option for our customers to find information about transit. Just key terms at the end of this, you can see, we've have this in line with our other revenue generating agreements with between 55 and 65%. And then the total estimated revenue for ours is going to be 37 million over a 20-year period. So we think that is going to be very lucrative for the agency. So some of the specs, as you can see here, the display will approximately be 20 by 30, and the overall height of the structure between 40 and 50 feet. Actually, let me go back one. If you can see where this pink area is, that's actually where going to be the structure will be, which will be out of the site of the actual postcard shot for the Gaslamp archway that's right there. And that was one of the things that the Gaslamp Quarter Association was really, wanted us to be aware of. And so we, with the placing of this, it will be out of that like postcard shot of the Gaslamp Quarter, but we'll still be able to attract the impressions and revenue off of Fifth Avenue as well as Harbor Drive. So here's the rendering. As you can see, we're going with kind of a Gaslamp look and feel. We'd like the three base pillars will be brick, which is very similar to what's there already. And we want it to fall in line there, as well as the pillars that's going to be holding up the digital sign will be that Victorian era Gaslamp feel and look. And so we really like that. We think the Gaslamp Quarter and just some of the things that are immediately around that, we wanted it to blend in not only with what's at the station and the design that we have in the Gaslamp Trolley Square, but then also the surrounding community. And we think the architect did a really good job with these renderings. So here's a looking southwest towards the trolley station and convention center. On this side where you see the MTS logo, there will be a metal mesh on that side for branding and station signage, but also to allow airflow for the electronics that are going to be behind there for the operation. Here's a shot looking east toward Petco Park. And here's the architect. He's based in La Mesa. He's had some very well-known projects in the community involving the entertainment industry with, the airport concessions, Cucina Urbana, Club M in the Grand Del Mar, and Amaya La Jolla. So familiar with the restaurant industry and some of the entertainment aspects of that as well. Here's the outreach that we've done. It's been more surgical than broad. We just wanted to make sure we were getting to those people who are going to be most impacted by it. So we've had some good conversations with the Gaslamp Quarter Association, the general manager at the Hard Rock Hotel. Sharon and I met with the executive director at the Downtown Partnership last week. Also, Big Outdoors met with Comic-Con, and also the building owner, Howard Greenberg, that's in the immediate area. And everybody was excited about it. And they said, how can we use that for our purposes, was more of the, the feedback that we got. And so I think it was all positive. I think people like the renderings of the stakeholders that we've reached out to. They like how it blends in with some of the surrounding community. And so we'll continue to, reach out to them as we go along in this process and construction gets underway. And, we feel it's very important that it is a part of this community, and it will be for some time. And so the people who are invested in that immediate community, we really want to have this ongoing dialogue with them. Here's benefits and uses I think we've talked about before. So it can broadcast Amber Alerts, other PSAs, promote our transit services, even in the areas, that's in the immediate locations. We can, share information about events that are happening, which the Downtown Partnership was interested in doing. So we're interested in working with these stakeholders, and, certainly will when there's events taking place or things that they want to promote. We're certainly willing to talk to them about our 10% allocation and finding that transit connection with the events that are happening. So with that, we'll just open it up for discussion and questions on this item, but just wanted to give you a quick look at the renderings and where they're at and kind of our timeline and schedule and some of the feedback that we've received so far.
Thank you very much. Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We do. The original DRA. Please unmute yourself now.
So, hey guys, I did find something where you could get ads. So in LA, they did reach a deal to provide, this is in 2001, so we're like way behind, to provide 150 free public toilets under the contract Outfront /JC DeSaux or something. It's DECAUX, where the exclusive operators of these stalls were free in exchange for selling ad and space in the city property and sharing revenue. So it is possible. So if you guys could look into that, that would be great, because you're looking into all of these other ways to get ad revenue. And if it's possible for these places to do it with toilets, I think that that should be one of your next steps, and you should really look into that because it's important. And like I said, if it was that easy for me to find, like, you guys need to do your own due diligence and search for bathroom companies that are going to provide this service to you for free in exchange for ad space, so that you can make this kind of transit conducive for people if that's what you want. I mean, even the people writing it now don't have that. So you should provide that. It's available. I just offered you an opportunity to look into it. So it would behoove you to do that if you really care about people.
That concludes public comment, Chair.
Thank you, Clerk. Do we have any board member comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Olson, for that informational update. We appreciate that. We'll move on to item number 7, which is a review of next week's board agenda.
I'll just, as the board voted in closed session on the special meeting, we will be adding an item about the transitive contract to the agenda that you don't see on it right now.
Can that go on consent? Could the amendment to the Transdev contract go on consent?
I'm fine with that.
Yes,
Just trying, we have a huge agenda, that's why
let's put that on consent. The board approved it.
I will say that, so right now there is a San Diego Foundation collaboration agreement. At first, I wasn't sure if it was going to make it. I think it will. It's fairly simple. It follows up on authority the board gave us in April. So that's an item that I think I would move to consent. It just outlines kind of a process we're going to go through with the foundation, but doesn't have a lot of specifics that we need feedback from the board on yet.
Sounds good.
So, and then just, there are 3 closed sessions, but I think they'll be fairly quick because they're fairly routine.
All right.
and then we'll put the board policy 21 revisions on them as well.
Okay, very good. All right, then we will move on to any other staff communications and business.
One thing we're going to have at the board next week is kind of fun, is we're bringing in our 50-year driver employee and his family are going to be here. So that we'll do that right at the beginning.
Wonderful. Okay, we'll look forward to that. Any other committee member communications or other business? Appears to be a hard no. Our next meeting date is July 13th. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.